Hello, class. Welcome to week 7. I cannot believe we're actually in the last 25% of our class. We're wrapping up pretty soon. The weeks have just flown by, and I've enjoyed getting to know you and working with you on the professional ethics course. So for week 7, we're going to look at chapters 11 and 12. And some of the things that I want to point out in these chapters, we're looking at the ethical challenges in the global society, and then we're going to talk about ethical crisis leadership. I am fascinated by what we call cultural competence, where we just don't, accept and understand diversity, but we are competent, that we recognize the differences in cultures. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a culture of someone from another country. It can be a culture that's different than the culture we're accustomed to. For example, I live right outside New Orleans, as you know, and I grew up in New Orleans. And New Orleans is a very distinct culture, and even among the sections of the city, like most large cities, there are distinct differences in cultures in various pockets of the city. So, for example, I live now in a little town called Picayune, which is about 50 miles northeast of New Orleans, right over the Mississippi line. So if I were to go down in Treme, the area in central New Orleans, where there's the birthplace of jazz, and there is a lot of cultural music in that area of African American origins. And it is not uncommon on a Sunday afternoon to have a second line parade through the streets of Treme. Would we have a second line parade in Picayune? Probably not, because it's not our culture. So you can see right even in this microcosm of our country, we have two very different cultures that are going on. So understanding and being aware and being not just aware, but being sensitive in a way that we empathize and we also try to make others feel that we want to learn about them, that we want to know who they are, we want to know more about them. So that's one of the things we talk about here. There are many, many videos on YouTube and whole courses in cultural competence. I took a whole 8-week course in cultural competence as part of my doctorate program, which I thoroughly enjoyed that class. And our cultures, we tend to not realize that even as a family, you might have a culture, that you have routines, that you have cultural norms, that you have things you believe in. So if you're going to Brewton Parker, and I'm going to say, if you are Baptist, the Baptists have a certain culture. We dunk people. We're Catholics, don't dunk. So that's a cultural, religious issue. Understanding those things and understanding how some of the things we might say or do might be offensive to someone and we don't know it. So being aware of those things. And the book talks about masculine versus feminine societies. Feminine cultures such as they talk about Finland and Denmark and the Netherlands, where you'll see a lot of benefits, where people have almost a socialist mindset, versus the United States, which is truly capitalist. And I watched a video on YouTube the other day, and it talked about the difference between Americans and British people. And one of the things the guy said, the host, he is British, and he said, other countries don't have the degree of patriotism that we have. So seeing somebody wearing an American flag here doesn't faze us at all. But if they wear that American flag in another country, first off, it's probably a little bit offensive because they're in another country. But other people in other countries don't necessarily wear like a Greek flag or a French flag or, an Italian flag or a Chinese flag or any of those. And so that is a very different thing. And in fact, when I came home from Italy last November, I was on the plane with a tour group of elderly people. And I'm going to say elderly because I know they were older than I am. And they were coming back from the Holy Land. And one of the older couples were walking around the plane, and I understand that, to not get deep vein thrombosis, blood clot. And they were walking around with their MAGA hats on, which is fine. But then I thought about it. There's a lot of international people on these planes. Do you really have to wear those hats? I'm sure you love them. But they were making a statement, a deliberate statement. And I'm not sure how that blends with a Christian group and Christianity to make that statement on an international flight. So I hope you understand what I'm saying there. So we're going to look at that this week. The last chapter in the book talks about the ethical challenges of crisis leadership. This is really an important thing to understand when a crisis occurs. How do we respond, and how do we ensure that whatever crisis it is can be prevented again if possible? And this is going to be a crisis that I dealt with a little more than a year ago. This is a very sad story. I worked at the hospital, and I was coming back from, I was going from my office to the OR. I never usually went to the OR, but I was going to get scrubs because I didn't have surgical scrubs, because I was going to go into the OR and do some observation. And I was walking, I parked where I always park, walking down the sidewalk, and I saw a group of people, and I saw a pair of legs laying across the sidewalk. And I'm like, okay, somebody fell. I need to go over there because I'm the risk manager. Let me go get a statement. Let me see what's what, because if they fell and they're hurt, they're going to sue us. So before I could get there, Bruce Jordan, who was the chief security guard, stopped me. And he said, turn around. And he turned me around. I hope I haven't told you guys this story, because sometimes I'll blend together. He said, turn around, don't go there. And I'm like, what? Why? What's going on? He said, just go the other way. Go into the ER through the back door. Go the other way and take those people with you. So, okay, something happened. And then all of a sudden I see hundreds of cop cars coming. And the sirens. And, you're kind of oblivious at that moment. And when I got around the back of the emergency room and I went into the back door, the people are saying, what happened? What happened? So I was like, I think there was an accident or something out there. And I see them running down the hall with a stretcher. And the whole staff, the ER staff, was just racing down the hall toward the trauma room with a stretcher. Unfortunately, what happened was a young woman, decided that her life wasn't worth living. And she lay down in front of the doors of the emergency room and killed herself with a gun. To me, that was a traumatic day. And it still weighs heavy on my heart. And it weighs heavy on the hearts of the people who are involved in that. So understanding those things, and I may have put this in a message, and I may have talked about this in the previous video, but you could see how much it means to me. It was a life-changing event for us, and it did involve crisis management, because I had to be the one, because none of the senior managers were there, so I had to be the one to get the bystanders out of the way, answer the questions with the cops, deal with the detectives, and move them along, which, I'm not bragging about that. It was horrible to have to do that. But managing that in an empathetic way. And then people started posting stuff on Facebook about this woman. And sadly, her brother posted, that's my sister. Would you please not make comments or speculate about my sister? So as individuals, we need to think about this in times of crisis. And this is really what I think Christ came to earth for, is to help us be strong in these moments when we need to be strong, to be empathetic, and to help others. So that's what chapter 12 is going to be talking about. So that was on the individual level, and it was also on the organizational level, and it was on the community level, because it rocked our community that this happened, that this woman desperately cried for help. And we, as a community, as individuals, as a healthcare system, we failed her. So it's a very sad story. And all we can do is pray for people. So we're going to be wrapping up this. Your final already will be ready to go next week. So you have an assignment this week where you're going to be looking at the code of ethics of an organization. And I want you to do some analysis on that. Pick an organization, and if you pick any big organization, if you go to their About Us page, you're going to find their code of ethics, code of conduct, those kind of things. So I want you to look at that, look at it closely, and see what you think about it, and do a little critique on it. If you have any questions, let me know. I want you guys to catch up this week. Please catch up this week. I want to see you do well in the class. Please catch up. So again, if you have any questions, let me know. It has been a joy to work with you, and I will be back in touch with you guys next Sunday, and I'll be on the message boards with you throughout the week. Y'all take care.